Afternoon. Happy Tuesday to everyone. My name is Porscha Brown. I'm an attorney here in El Paso, and the El Paso Chamber has invited me to speak with our lovely panelists about how we can better support El Paso's LGBTQ plus workforce. Today with me, I have Gloria, who's head of operations for Trutemps and human resources. I also have Nadine Wolf, who's the general manager of Briar Patch. And last but not least, I have Bryan Crowe, who's the general manager of Destination El Paso. This event is part of a series sponsored by the Workforce Solutions Borderplex, which provides industry updates on our region's major sectors. All right, well, no time to waste. Let's introduce our panelists. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Nadine.
Hello, my name is Nadine Wolf. I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas. I am the general manager of the Briar Patch. I have been going on for 3 years now, and along with those 3 years, I'm also a member of El Paso Sun City Pride. I am the current secretary at the moment. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, great to have you. And Art?
Hello everyone, my name is Gloria and I'm the head of operations and HR here at Trutemps Staffing Group, and I'm also the president of the El Paso Society for Human Resources Management in El Paso. Thank you for the invitation.
Awesome, great to have you, Art. And Bryan, again, last but not least.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bryan Crowe. I'm general manager and CEO for Destination El Paso. We are the destination marketing and event and venue management arm of the city of El Paso.
Awesome. Well, it's so great to have everyone today. Let's jump into the questions. So what are some of the unique challenges experienced in El Paso when creating and sustaining LGBTQ plus friendly business places?
Who wants to take the first one?
Well, I'll start with the basis and then you guys take it on with the business of your operation. So it's really important that when creating a work-friendly environment for the LGBT community, that to start off with, that you have some LGBTQ sensitivity training for all employees. So that way everyone understands how to be inclusive and diverse in the workforce. And that's really important because sometimes some comments that some other work partners would say, colleagues might come as offensive to the community. That's why the training will prevent that type of communication in between employees. The bathroom is another important thing where it wouldn't be such a big deal. It's important that that you mark bathrooms as equal gender neutral, or that you specify that there's one that's gender neutral and then his or her. Also pronouns, that pronouns are being said right in all of the handbooks, on your policies, that you update your policies on your employee benefits to ensure that now it reads that it's for both for your partner, and it's not specific as far as the sex, more so that way it's inclusive of gender identity, which is really important and what came off of the Supreme Court ruling. So those are really important things that you all need to have into consideration, your written guidelines, and to ensure that they are in compliance to be inclusive of the workforce and as a whole in the LGBT community. Okay.
I was going to say, interesting in hearing the question, I kind of took it a little bit differently, and then so I know it talks about unique challenges, but I saw it as unique opportunities. I think that businesses have, in order to create LGBTQ plus friendly business spaces and work environments. Art is certainly correct in identifying some things from a policy and procedure and training component that are really important, from both welcoming guests and from being able to attract employees and having an environment that is open and friendly to everyone. But I also want to bring forward the incredible opportunity I think that exists by as a business taking the stance of being an LGBTQ plus friendly business space. It really helps you tie into the community. And I think that even beyond just the LGBTQ plus community itself, I think very often a lot of your prospective clients, people who would patronize your business, are looking to see and do business with businesses that they see as being equitable really to everyone. I mean, I think it's certainly become an issue here in 2020. You see a lot of discussion about equality and equity, and not just from the LGBTQ community, but for communities of color as well. I think especially your millennials and even other generations are looking to engage with businesses that have equality credentials that are in line with their own individuals' feelings. And I think that's really where the business is at today. Now, certainly we'd love you to also do it because it's the right thing to do, but it's also, I think, going to be very beneficial to your business as a whole. Something to consider. And so I want to take the angle that it was an opportunity that a business can have, for sure.
I kind of lucked out in the fact that when I did come in as a manager at the Briar Patch, the legacy that Klaus Schmidt and his partner Don Randino created was, you could come to Briar Patch and be yourself. That was your safe space, and it still is your safe space. And I uphold myself and my staff to that highest of standard. It is very important that you engage with the community and listen, not just hear, listen to conversations that are going on. Klaus and Don, when they created the Briar Patch, they wanted people to come in their own uniqueness and be able to feel safe and have a safe space to be able to congregate with other people in the community that, you know, couldn't go anywhere else and feel safe. As far as the restrooms are concerned, I completely agree with you, Art. I do have gender neutral restrooms at the Briar Patch. And it's all about being sensitive. It's being sensitive to the community's needs.
That's awesome.
Those are great responses. And I like what Bryan said about opportunities. See these as opportunities to make changes that are positive for the community. And also what Nadine's saying, that we need to listen, right? And it's really great that Art has some concrete items that businesses can implement today, right? So along the lines, I think Bryan might have mentioned just now, kind of the intersection between people of color and the LGBT community here in El Paso. So panelists, here's my question. Does the intersection between LGBTQ and people of color living on the border create additional hurdles, or, as Bryan says, opportunities in supporting the LGBT community from a business perspective?
In a personal level, living in El Paso, I've never seen that, as a hurdle or an obstacle in our community. I think our community has always been very open and accepting of, about people of color and about, your sexual orientation. So I don't think that's the case in El Paso. But I mean, obviously there are businesses that do, refuse services that they choose not to provide services to certain groups or people of color or whatnot. But I can't attest to that. I don't know if Bryan or Nadine could talk more about that.
I honestly, I have to agree with you, Art. I think that here in El Paso, I know we go away from El Paso and say, oh, blah, blah, what it's like to be away from El Paso. And then you encounter some sort of racism when you leave El Paso, and then you wish that you were back home, because then you really realize that back home here in the borderland, that we really don't discriminate as much as we think we do here within our city. And as far as I'm concerned, from a personal experience, I've not been raised to see color. I've been raised to see a person with a heart. And at Briar Patch, we don't discriminate. We don't care what color you are when you come through the door. We just want you to come in and feel safe and be able to have a place to be yourself.
Well, I think both panelists indicate, and it's something that we should all be very proud of. We're all very fortunate to live in a community, I think that is very open and accepting, not only of the LGBTQ community, but also of people of color. El Paso is such a diverse community and has such strong history in equality credentials. For those who don't know, El Paso was one of the first cities to desegregate through a municipal ordinance prior to the Civil Rights Act being federal law nationally. I think that's a very good indicator of the kind of community that we are and kind of how we saw things. It was led by then Mayor Judson F. Williams, who was trying to have lunch with a friend of his who was a person of color, and he wasn't able to bring his friend into the establishment to have lunch. And he said, well, I'm the mayor and I can't bring who I want to have lunch. Let's change this. And so that's when you saw El Paso pass a local ordinance to do that. I think we're really very fortunate. And I appreciate the fact, Porscha, that you reframed the question again around opportunities. I think that's one of the things that's a great strength in here for businesses. I think we have an opportunity really to be a leader on all of these types of issues, especially as it relates to equality. It's such a focus area. I think nationally, it's going to play a big issue in elections at the state and national level as well. El Paso is a great microcosm and a great example, I think, of how communities of different backgrounds, colors, religions, sexual orientation, economic status live together in one community. And when I say that, I think it's important. I think I said El Paso, but I really should say the border region, because it is, I think, very much part of the fact that with our relationship to Juarez as one metroplex, that really, I think, helps kind of set the stage for the community that we are. So, I mean, I think as the other panelists indicated, I can't point to a specific instance where I've seen that is a challenge here. If anything, it's a great strength of ours that that we don't see those differences. We see each other as a part of this community, and we're all I think working together to make our community better and take care of each other.
And it's something that you see in the workforce also, the mutual respect towards one another. And one of the biggest pushes right now in workforce development is diversity and inclusion training. And so you would see that there's a lot of postings for directors that will oversee the implementation of that type of training in organizations. And that's because they haven't had the opportunity of being exposed to a diverse and cultural city like we have in El Paso, like Brian's mentioned, where it's always been dominant of one race, color, or way of thinking. And so that's a big push now. I think that we are in the forefront, like Brian did mention, and having that open mindset. And I think that's a big plus for El Pasoans as a whole.
Absolutely. And I don't think as El Pasoans, we give ourselves enough credit for leading the way and possibly paving the path to be examples for sister cities or other larger cities around the US.
I agree with that.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with that.
I wish I could tell you what the recipe was, because we should write it down and share it with every community in this country. And I think it is an area of struggle that we do see in other parts of the nation. But we're very fortunate here with the way that this community has come together. And I mean, you can look at a lot of different issues and even some of the challenges that we've experienced here, everything from the tragic incident and shooting in August 3rd of last year, to this community opening its arms to refugees at the US-Mexico border and reaching into its own pocket to provide care for those who needed it the most. And we have a long history of things like that.
I couldn't agree more. El Paso definitely does not give itself enough credit. I'm from Austin, but I've been here for 4 years. I haven't known that there was a little hidden, well, actually a big town that was so progressive and so okay with, being LGBTQ, being a person of color, being bilingual, right? I would have probably came here to visit way before. I just didn't know how great it was until I got here. And so I definitely agree that El Paso doesn't give itself enough credit. And I do also see that there is a wave of different trainings that are being pushed in El Paso that you're not getting much kickback. I see that organizations are accepting it and they're wanting to put on different trainings, especially on diversity, being inclusive, LGBTQ issues. And I like that, of course, they're offering it in both languages, English and Spanish, because it's El Paso and it's a Spanish speaking town. And I think that's great. So let me ask y'all this. So recently, SCOTUS came down with a decision about LGBTQ status in the workplace. I was very excited to hear about this, to know that on a national level, there couldn't be discrimination, or discrimination, you could actually have some kind of legal remedy. So what do y'all think will be the opportunities or the improvements that this recent SCOTUS decision will allow for the LGBTQ workforce?
So in a workforce standpoint, I know that we discussed this last year where we didn't know what the decision was, the outcome of the decision was going to be. And it really, kind of hindered, I guess it really made people's opinions really show and be very loud about it, and demonstrate hatred because they could at the moment, because there was nothing protecting the LGBT community in the workforce. And it's good to know now that, you can be fired for being gay or transgender. So basically that's what it did for the workforce, where gay and transgender people are now protected. And so we're not going to be, it's not on basis of sex, it's on the base of your sexual orientation and your gender identity. And where if you're going to be forced or asked to use a uniform, that you're not going to be forced to use one with a gender that you don't identify yourselves with. So that was a huge move. And I think, if anything, it just set that clear, and it's black and white. It's not gray anymore.
I think this is a huge, another milestone for the LGBTQ plus community. I mean, Stonewall's been paving the way for rights, and this here now in the present, I think is super amazing, and it allows for the LGBTQ plus community to be safe at work, to be protected, and to not be discriminated against, no matter what you identify as.
Yeah, I'd agree with everyone so far. I mean, it's a landmark ruling here in the United States, and especially for states like Texas, where there wasn't state protection, specifically protecting workforce discrimination for the LGBTQ plus community. I think we talked about our community, and I think that it's certainly not something that we really see as being a significant challenge in this community previous to that, but that doesn't mean that it didn't take place, it doesn't happen. And I think it's really critical that now you have that protection, and it also makes it, I think, easier. You don't have to worry about, looking from an economic development standpoint, or for other companies or individuals that might be thinking of taking jobs or starting new companies in other markets. And specifically, we're trying to attract those types of jobs and opportunities here to El Paso, and they have to think, well, but I'm concerned because Texas doesn't provide this type of protection, right? So now that you have this national position from the Supreme Court that effectively eliminates any lack of protections that might exist in other states. So it's certainly, I think, something that can be continued to be used to help promote and develop El Paso as a community. I know when we're trying to attract visitors, we're trying to attract meetings, conventions, sporting activity, events, and other things to our community, this is one of the issues that does come up with some clients and events rights holders, is that they're looking to hold their events in spaces that they know are going to be open and safe for everyone, and they have equality credentials and positions. And I think, we all, I think, can remember a few years back where the bathroom bill issues at the state level were, and not just in Texas, but in other states, in Indiana and North Carolina, were threatening major sport activities and events, threatening meetings and conventions. Companies are choosing not to allow travel to certain cities and states related to these issues. There are economic development elements related to equality positions, as so many companies and individuals are conscious of those types of things about the places that they're going to spend their money in. And so I think this is just one more thing that helps eliminate one of those challenges that we might have here in the borderland area.
Those are all such great things. The bathroom bill and all of that seems like 10 years ago. But again, I'm only like 21, so 10 years is a long time for me. So let me ask this, and this is just a pivot from where we were. It's a bit of a pivot from where we were, but we have COVID-19. We're meeting virtually. Has that created any opportunities when dealing with having LGBTQ persons in the workplace, or maybe even LGBTQ persons as consumers? Has COVID-19 impacted that?
For us, over at the Briar Patch, I'm sorry, Art.
No, go ahead.
For us, we've been out of work in total for 7 months, which has been very hard on not just the staff, but I definitely worry about the LGBTQ plus community, because Pride Square is currently shut down. So where is a safe environment for everybody to socialize and be part of a community? I definitely worry about those in the community that don't have a safe place to go, that are still, because we know this is still happening, where there are certain people part of the community that are not accepted by family members, friends, workspaces. And so Pride Square is definitely a place where the LGBTQ plus community does go to socialize and feel free and feel themselves. The social aspect of it, it's been hard on everybody. I know, starting from children to adults. If you don't have that interaction, what does that do to your mental capacity? What does that do to your depression? What does that do to, there's so many questions about it all. And so I feel that it's had quite the negative impact on the LGBTQ plus community. Again, you know, all I can do is reiterate and say, we need our safe environment back.
Yeah, I think Nadine brings up a great point, which is, you know, oftentimes, you know, certain businesses, specifically bars and restaurants and other places that historically have been key elements to LGBTQ community, especially based around, there was a time and a place when, you know, you couldn't just walk into any business or any place and assume that you'd be welcome there. And so these things are a big part of the community historically, as they really are those safe spaces, places of connecting. Fortunately, we're seeing that expand greatly, and there's so many more types of businesses and places that have great equality credentials, and people can be more open and live, you know, live their true lives. I think in terms of, you know, challenges, it's certainly, we are seeing that businesses are affected by the change in how they have to do business, specifically in Nadine's types of business, where unfortunately bars are specifically not able to be open yet at this point. From an opportunity perspective, you know, we're seeing a lot of businesses that are changing the way that they do business and doing things either by appointment, or they're doing things through e-commerce and online. And so there are opportunities, I think, for those of you in the small business community that they're making that shift to also use this as an opportunity to make clear statements when you're not only talking about how you're dealing with health and safety, but you're taking these precautions, or for example, the city of El Paso's pledge to safety, about how you are keeping your employees and your guests safe. You can also talk about your positions on equality. So it's a great opportunity for you to introduce all of that message to your prospective customer and client base. I think collectively, that's a great opportunity to really make sure that that's something that you're talking about.
Well, I think that this pandemic has really affected everyone in general as a whole. You know, it's not a pandemic that discriminates against color or sex or how you identify yourself. So it's something that it's affecting all of us. How we adapt to it is how we need to look at it. And so maybe, you know, adapting to maybe so we could get those bars and places, you know, open again, like, you know, trying to adapt to the new way of business. And so that's a lot of the challenges that are being seen across the board. I mean, we were at a 3.3% unemployment rate in February prior to the pandemic, and right now El Paso stands at 9.9. And one of the biggest sectors being affected is Nadine's sector, which is the food and the food and bar sector is the most heavily impacted, and it also includes tourism and hospitality. And so that is just being hit. So I really think, as an LGBTQ person being affected by the pandemic, yes, that, you know, that specific, like, you know, location for individuals to go have fun and whatnot, they're closed, but, you know, like Brian did mention, perhaps going to other venues and whatnot that are opening, and perhaps suggesting to Nadine, to like sometimes like changes, so that you guys could adapt. I don't know, start selling food, or something, but yeah, it's really hard, and it's hard on everyone. No one's meeting their quarterly revenues. We're hoping that fourth quarters will be good, but the challenge is real.
Yes, I agree. And I'm sorry, Nadine, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say, absolutely. I agree with Brian and Art. I mean, of course, we want to do things the safe way, but it's not as simple as just open a kitchen, install a kitchen, get a food truck. And I totally get you, Art. I've researched every aspect on what needs to be done, and there's a lot of thinking that goes into it, because of course at the end of the day, like Art and Brian have said, even though there are other places where you are able to go, you still want to be safe at the end of the day and not contribute to any possible rise in any sort of trouble, infection. So it is, and I agree with you, Art. You couldn't have said it any better when you said this doesn't discriminate against anybody. COVID has affected every single one of us in some sort of way. It's been tough.
I mean, I'm at work right now, and I have my office.
That's a great mask. I need to.
Thank you.
I only have black and blue, so I need to.
They're great accessories to combine with your clothing. So
that's awesome.
You're talking about something that's been an opportunity, right? Like there's a whole new industry, right? There's a whole new fashion accessory that none of us were buying and none of us were wearing before, that in a few short months has become a whole thing. And there's folks that are using ones that are fairly inexpensive and plain, and there are some that are with brands and or individual art and creativity, and people are making their own. So this is another one of those things, I think, that where certainly even the LGBTQ community will be able to take advantage of that as well, and be creative and create something, a business opportunity.
Absolutely. Silver lining. I mean, look at all those people that have come forward with all those great sewing skills.
Yeah, but can we get all the bartenders to learn to sew, Nadine? And you guys can just turn Briar Patch into a mask making operation.
It looks like we're gonna have to be headed that route if nothing
Come sit under the big
soon.
tree in the back with your sewing machine.
Drag queen night, with sequins masks.
Yeah, listen, that is happening. I've already seen it. I've seen some Zoom shows that when those have been incorporated. Look at the VMAs earlier this week, where they incorporated that into a live performance. It's a big part of fashion and pop culture.
Yeah, so it's obviously we all have to adapt to this new change, and just making it happen for all of us.
Well, keep me posted on whatever y'all decide. Drive through drag shows, or drive through parades. Mask
we
making.
are actually working on that, one of those very things that you just mentioned. So
awesome. That's so exciting, and I love seeing all the new ideas and different projects people are doing during the quarantine to try to get people involved in the community, especially with the kids. The drive-in movies in the community, as well as those opera in the park, and there'll be someone driving by who's playing music. So I'm interested to see what happens. I would like for the quarantine to finish up soon, but never. I'm excited for the new ideas. Let me ask this. So what are some initiatives or programs that you've implemented maybe before COVID-19, and maybe some things you're thinking of implementing after, or just things you've implemented in the past that have helped you with successfully creating and sustaining LGBTQ friendly environments?
Well, in the case of Trutemps and for the El Paso Society for Human Resources Management, we do, celebrate Pride Month, and we specifically do it in the month of June. And so it's just simple as, changing our logo and branding with rainbow flags. And this year, what we did at our company was we went ahead and celebrated Pride Month by decorating our offices and then having a competition and everyone dressing up in Pride colors. That encourages that whole diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And so it was a really neat month. Unfortunately, it wasn't as big as it could have been because of COVID. But just little things like that make a huge difference in any workplace. And so, I mean, look at our Pride. What was it? Our at Pride Square that we had. Someone help me here. I'm having a brain freeze.
You're talking about the sort of unofficial.
The unofficial, was it
yeah,
parade?
Yeah,
parade,
yeah.
right?
It was just like we all just, yeah.
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 So, but it was done, I mean, when someone wants to do something, you just make it happen. And so it's like that in the workplace, it's like that anywhere. So, yeah.
Well, as Art said, this year has certainly been a challenge. Some of the things that we're used to being able to do, the Pride celebration that our organization also is very proud of, as we try to help promote that for people to come and visit from outside of our community, to come stay in El Paso and enjoy Sun City Pride. We weren't able to do that this year, and I think that was obviously the right decision in terms of being able to ensure the health and safety of our community and our guests. I was pleased to see that we were able to sort of turn, but there's a new thing, which is this like drive-by birthday sort of thing that people were able to do and hang out in their front yard and wave at friends, into something even to be able to celebrate Pride in our community. It was great to see the support of the city and the police department and helping make sure that could happen safely and appropriately. We were excited to get the Amigo Man, who's the official mascot of our community, out and at the event. But I think that we also look at not just in what we do in the month of June, but how we make not only our pride, if you will, but the inclusivity of the LGBTQ community in our day-to-day work environments are an important part. We are seeing more of a focus on equality and inclusion for people of color, LGBTQ community. It's definitely a significant item for us as a society to be focused on right now. And so organizations can look at how they can do that, including if you have employees that are members of these groups that can help you, and you could do kind of a listening session to kind of hear. You might think that you have everything figured out, and that you are providing this environment that is open and equal for people of color, for the LGBTQ community, and you may learn that there's some other things that you might need your attention. Certainly in our own organization, this isn't something that we do. I do want to make sure that you're hearing from all different levels of the organization, and it's a lot of times it's just simple things that can be done to help you focus on that. And I think that people there's a lot of respect from being able to have that two-way dialogue to talk about what the individual needs may be in a particular program.
For me, being a straight ally in the community, I've definitely had my challenges, but I think the impact that I've been able to make is that I've been able to remain present and show visibility and awareness in conversations when engaging with the community. I know one of the rules I passed at Briar Patch is that we will no longer take down our pride flags after Pride is over. We will continue to keep our pride flags up, our transgender flags, our bear flags. We will keep all our flags up year round to show that Pride does not go away after June. It is a 365 celebration.
I think that's great. I do like walking or driving by Pride Square and seeing all the flags. Even though, we couldn't really go out like traditionally or have a huge in-person close quarters parade as normal. But I think those are all, especially like the idea of a listening session. I think any business could do that, a nonprofit, maybe a governmental entity, a business could do that with their employees. That way you get the full perspective. I definitely agree with that. And I think those are all great things. Does anyone have, I don't have any more questions, but I'm loving this conversation. So I want to just check into anything else that I missed or y'all want to talk about with everyone.
I was just going to say, I think one of the things I'm particularly proud of as a member of the community is I think that we, especially in the course of this particular year, which has been challenging for our nation and for the world, and not just from the impact of COVID-19, but from all the other social issues that I think that have gotten a lot of attention, important and needed attention by our nation is that we're talking about the flag and the pride flag. Nadine was talking about not taking those down. I'm particularly pleased with the fact that the pride flag, or the rainbow flag, which has also been modified to be more inclusive, I think has become sort of an overall symbol of equality as a whole, and not simply just about the LGBTQ community. It's a banner for people of color. It's a banner for the LGBTQ community. It's a banner for so many different groups, and I think that that's been particularly, something that I'm particularly proud of is to see that. And I know there's some different renditions of how to, to continue to update the flag that is used to represent all those things. I think that's pretty cool.
I agree. I think that this year has been challenging for all of us, but that we still have one another here, and like the support of the chamber doing this program to educate the LGBT community and businesses that support the LGBTQ, and that it's important that now that we have this ruling, that occurred, that protects the gay and transgenders, that we go ahead and like update our policies and the trainings. They're just little things that sometimes we oversee, but could get us in a lot of trouble. So I know that I started off with like the legalities and stuff like that. Usually what I do is scare everyone with HR, but yeah, just make sure to take a look at all of those items that sometimes you think that they don't need to be updated, but everything needs to be updated. That's it.
Absolutely. I agree with everybody. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Very honored to be here today, especially from, like I said, the straight ally point of view, and just the awareness and making sure that as a straight ally, I am constantly being educated and learning. Coming from my background and running, biker bars for so long, and just being kind of hard, and there was definitely some sensitivity that had to be part of my part of my learning and my my training. And now if you were to ask me to go back to a biker bar establishment, I would tell you no, never in a million years. I am truly happy where I am. And like I said, it was a struggle in the beginning, but then once everything started to settle into place, you can't take me away from my home and the community. If there's anything that I could ever do for anybody, always going to be there. And again, that all goes back to El Paso and how it has been challenging for us. But I feel as El Pasoans, when you're put up to the challenge, we say, okay, we're up for the challenge. Let's do this. Let's come together as a community. Let's be there for one another.
Yeah, I think that's very true. El Paso, especially for its size, when you take into effect, the roughly 2 million people that are in the Borderplex region, we're able to function like this really close-knit small town, and we take care of each other and protect each other. And I can't tell you how important it is, Nadine, to have allies, to have straight allies as a part of this conversation, and that are participatory. And we really certainly appreciate that, because it is a conversation that needs to be happening from all elements of our community, not just those of us that identify as LGBTQ, but our allies as well. And so I think, as you talked about, that it's a ongoing and learning process. I could say the same as a member of the community. I learn new things about my community all the time myself. And I think that's the nature of life, that it's a constantly evolving thing. And I think that there should be no embarrassment in needing to know more, learn more, and seeing that it is something that, when you need to ask questions and to seek input and assistance from others, and organizations like the Chamber, Sun City Pride, and others are all places where you can go if you're you're trying to find, hey, who could I get to take a look at our policies and procedures and talk about how we can do this, or how can I start a conversation, regarding people of color in my organization. I think there's no shame in raising your hand to say, I want to know more and learn more. It's something all of us do.
Lifelong learners.
Exactly.
My eyes were definitely open when I attended CAPI this year earlier in February. Very emotional experience. And talking to a lot of the Stonewall generation, I probably left almost every day in tears, not realizing how much the Stonewall generation went through and wanting to bring that home and help that much more and really just take my job as a straight ally that much more serious.
And CAPI, for those who don't know, is the organization of Pride events throughout the country.
Yeah, it's the consolidated all Prides.
Yes, and we were very fortunate. El Paso was host to CAPI 2 years ago, I want to say, more or less. 2, 3? Okay, it's been that long, but it was great to have them in our city. We worked very closely with our partners at Sun City Pride to welcome CAPI to El Paso. It was the first time they'd ever met here.
That's super impressive. I've been very impressed with El Paso Pride. As someone from technically a larger city, I've been very impressed with El Paso's ability to still make it feel like it's like small town, right? Like you can go and say hello to anyone. So I think those are all great things. Thank you all for being here. Is there any, I don't want to shut anyone down or stop too soon. Is there anything else anyone has to say that they think people might want to know?
I just think we all need to stick together and hope that, you know, this ends sooner than later and we come together, we continue to come together as a community and be there for one another and have everybody out there know that they are not alone.
Exactly. Just stay safe, mask up, and, you know, take your precautions at this moment.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is, I mean, whether you're part of the LGBTQ community or persons of color community or not, at this time it's very challenging for a lot of us to reach out to people and just check in on them. Sometimes, you know, I think we have a lot of virtual contact, but it's important to make sure that we're staying in touch with people. So people, you know, this is a challenging thing to go through, you know, whether it's affected their business or it's affected life at home, or their economic situation, or just that it's just a different thing to get used to. You know, that you want to reach out to your friends and keep in touch with people and take care of each other.
Awesome. Well, it was so great having everyone, and I agree with everything that was just said. They said it so well, I won't repeat it. But thank you for being here. And as previously mentioned, you know, reach out to the chamber if you have any questions. And also thank you to Workforce Solutions Board